Welcome to Real People's Media, first live stream ever. We have two special guests in the house, Delee and Kanenhariyo. They're going to be discussing some issues from across the country involving colonization, invasions, and a little extra stuff. So Kanenhariyo, take it away.
Hey.
Hey.
Oh wow, we're here.
Here we are.
Our first live stream in the video studio. Mm-hmm. I'm excited. My name's Kanenhariyo. I'm Bear Clan. I'm from the community of Tyendinaga. Well, commonly referred to as Tyendinaga. Anyways, some of you may have seen me on the news in the winter time. I've been out of staying away from the cameras for the last 7 months or so. So this is kind of brand new for me to be back out in the visual. This is a brand new sort of thing. We're just piloting this to see how this is going to go. For those of you who don't know, I'm the founders of Real People's Media, and I'm the owner of Real People's Media and Real People's Radio. And I'm not really big on talking about all that sort of stuff. I'm more of a let's get it done sort of guy. But I decided I'd come and jump in on our first live stream and see how this goes. Can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh.
By the way, I'm so incredibly grateful that I get to be here for this very first live stream episode.
Well, the only way to do it is with a superstar, so we brought you.
Oh, I thought you were talking about yourself for a second.
No.
Yeah, I'm Delee, and I am Wet'suwet'en. I'm from Gidimt'en territory. Gidimt'en is my clan. And I'm from Kasiak, which is Grizzly House, which is the territories that Gidimt'en Camp was set up on for the resistance for the pipeline. And this is actually probably my 5th or 6th time to be able to be welcomed into your territories.
Oh, wow.
Several times coming back to visit friends and meeting some of my fellow Bear Clan members, which is incredibly important. So I'm honored and grateful to be here.
Maybe we'll have to make a Bear Clan show someday. Wouldn't that be fun?
We should.
Oh my
we
gosh.
should.
All
Yep.
over?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so for those listeners that are out there not really knowing, you described your territory and your land and all sort of things. Whereabouts is that in the sort of like in the colonial context? Where are we talking about?
So Wet'suwet'en Wet'suwet'en territories are unceded territories in northern so-called British Columbia. We have 22,000 square kilometers from that's just Wet'suwet'en territories, and that was affirmed by the Colonial Court Supreme Court decision in the Delgamuukw and Gasteway ruling.
What was the date of that?
That was 1997 is when the ruling came out, and it was started 10 years prior to that. So the court case was 10 years.
Just for listeners' sake, what are the kind of towns that are within your territory?
It's primarily small.
I know. What are the names of them?
Small towns. Well, Smithers is probably closest to the most like predominant settler center that we have, and that's just about 15 kilometers outside of Witsat. And Witsat is the community, the Wet'suwet'en community with the highest population of Wet'suwet'en people in it.
Approximately how many Wet'suwet'en are there in the world?
Oh, that I couldn't even give you an exact number. Well, yeah, I couldn't give you an exact number. We have so many people that are not just in Wet'suwet'en communities up north, but we have a huge amount of Wet'suwet'en living in more like city centers, and they're, come back. Everybody comes back. It's beautiful up there. I don't know how anybody could not, but it's people have like branched out, and we have to set our trap lines far and wide.
So do the Wet'suwet'en have like your people have like a series of villages? Are there main villages, and then are there like temporary ones, or maybe trap lines? Or I'm just trying to understand how you guys use your territory.
There are a number of Wet'suwet'en villages. From the east, the furthest east, we have Burns Lake. And then you move all the way west to our furthest west community is actually Hagwilget, which is in the center of Gidimt'en territories. So, and that was a part of our ancient alliance with the Gidimt'en. We've always had really good working relationships, and we've had, treaties with them that are thousands of years old. So we have a lot of community members that have a Gidimt'en background as well, and we have a lot of Gidimt'en people who have Wet'suwet'en lineage.
Oh, very
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I got a chance to hear some of the stories from some of your elders regarding your relationships and some of the war relationships that exist between your nation and the Gidimt'en, and
Yeah.
that was very exciting to hear that. If I recall correctly, one of your elders, she told me a story about a fellow, I can't remember his name, but there's a path, like a war path that he traveled that goes from your territory through Gidimt'en territory to the coast, if I remember correctly. And then that path still is visible. You can see that his road.
Well, we have the Grease Trail, but then we also have the Queese War Trail.
Yeah, that's the
And
one
she
there.
was talking about the Queese War Trail.
Yeah.
And that actually goes over the mountains to the coastal communities there, and that was the war that was had between the Wet'suwet'en and the leader Queese and I guess the nations on the coast that were trying to come over and take over.
Yeah, she told me this really
yeah.
awesome long story.
Yeah.
I was there for a long time in her house, and
Yeah.
she fed me lots of fish.
Yeah.
She was pretty awesome. Okay, well, so let's talk about, because people are, of course, we're here, we're talking about sort of Wet'suwet'en territory, and we've got this Wet'suwet'en Mohawk relationship, and let's talk about, because we haven't spoke about it in a long time, well, sort of, I guess it would be helpful for the listeners to have an idea about what was your responsibility or your connection to your traditional territory, leading to the days coming up to the RCMP's invasion in February of 2020. And then maybe we can go from there. I'd like to talk a little bit about what happened on our end.
Yeah. So my responsibility coming up to that date was to make sure that I connected with our Denise, our male chiefs, and our Tsakaze, our women chiefs, and be able to update them when things did start to happen, when there were mass police forces that started to move into the territories on that February morning. So it would have been about 3:30 in the morning, and I started getting messages and knew. I waited to make sure that was actually what was happening, and so at about 4:30, I started calling some of the Denise and Tsakaze, and
So I apologize for interrupting you. So there was an anticipation. The people knew that they were going to come. There was going to be some sort of invasion.
yeah,
How long before it happened did they know?
Well, we knew that it was going to be happening when the injunction was granted, right? So the Supreme Court Justice Church granted an injunction. I'm not exactly sure how, or because it doesn't make any sense, because we're unceded territory, we're a sovereign nation. I'm not sure how a colonial court system is making decisions like that to grant injunctions to allow things into our territories when there's been a clearly defined and affirmed no to this extractive project and the destruction of our territories. But somehow this Supreme Court justice allowed for this injunction to be granted, and so we knew that there were police forces in there since last year. They've never left. And we knew that they would be coming in. The chiefs had gone and delivered an eviction notice to Coastal GasLink employees and workers. And it was then just a matter of, it was a waiting game, essentially. And I had a dream a couple nights before the eviction notice was given out. And in my dream, I only had a certain amount of medication left. So everybody thought that the RCMP were coming in right away, as soon as the eviction notice was granted. And in my dream, it was at least a 20-day period where we would be sitting. And my exact words were, they're going to try and starve us out. They're going to make us wait. And that was unfortunately exactly what they did. So we had people behind these cutoff points, these lines, and we had, the RCMP had made a roadblock and weren't letting people in, despite what their own press releases were saying. Yeah, we're going to let people in. There is no exclusion zone. People can go in and deliver food, supplies, winter clothing, winter gear, but they weren't doing that. They were withholding people from entering into this, arbitrary exclusion zone. And so we could tell when they were going to be moving in, also because of they're small communities in the area, right? So
Right.
you notice when there is an influx of people that are just randomly around. A lot of the cops look like cops. When they all start showing up around town, it's not hard to
So
really.
the people knew they'd seen a build up
Yeah.
RCMP in the area. Oh,
Yeah.
I see. So can we go back to this thing about the judge making a decision regarding the injunction? Because I think it's really interesting. Because you had mentioned Delgamuuk. Now, my understanding about Delgamuuk, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not an expert on it, but my understanding is that Delgamuuk, the outcome of Delgamuuk, after an incredible amount of oral history and treaty, or sort of like historical research and anthropological study, proved that, and the Supreme Court affirmed that there was in fact Wet'suwet'en territory, and that there was no treaty. There's no treaties been made, no sale, surrender, so on, to the Canadian state or to the British Crown from the Wet'suwet'en people in their territory, and that was like 1997, I think. So the reason I'm finding this curious has to do with something that had happened here in Tyendinaga and in the Mohawk territory on the day that the RCMP came in large numbers in force in February 2020, and it was never talked about in the news. Like we had been saying it over and over here, but in the mainstream media never reported on it. So I kind of want to talk about it because I think it's an important thing.
Yeah.
So the Canadian Constitution, which is what are the rules that Canadians have to follow,
Yeah.
right, in their world, and the RCMP are obligated to uphold and to live within, and even the Supreme Court has to adhere to, unless there's been a challenge and they find there's a conflict with the Constitution.
Yeah.
And that is Section 35 of the Canadian Constitution. And within the Canadian Constitution, it describes there being a number of founding documents, sort of like founding legal apparatuses that support the creation of Canada. And one of those is the Royal Proclamation of 1763. So it sounds like we're talking about old stuff, but when in 1985, when they signed the Constitution, the Queen signed off on it, and that document needed to be included. And that document's important because it says that British Crown subjects, can't occupy or purchase lands and territory from, the language of the day was Indians, but they, today we were using the term Indigenous people. It's territory. Prior to or without the Crown first making a treaty and purchasing the lands. So it seems really ridiculous that a Supreme Court judge, you said the judge's name was Judge Church?
Yep, Judge Church.
Makes an injunction when there's no treaty agreement and no sale of the land, because in effect, and legally and based on what the Canadian Constitution says, your territory, Wet'suwet'en territory, is not Canada.
Yeah.
It's not Canadian. The people that live there they might be Canadians, but they're not living in Canada. They're living within your boundaries of your territory. So it's crazy that a Supreme Court judge would break its own, break the rules and make a effectively an illegal injunction, and
Yeah.
then the RCMP then followed along and enforced the injunction, which was illegal,
Yeah.
because they don't have the right to invade into Wet'suwet'en territory.
Yeah.
So over here, we've seen that, and people were quite upset about it because we thought, well, if they're willing to commit genocide, because when the Geneva Convention, one of the descriptions of genocide is to remove a people from their land.
Yep.
So by the RCMP moving into Wet'suwet'en territory, arresting people in their territory and in their homes, on their lands where you guys were, your brothers and sisters, and forcibly removing them as an act of genocide. And so over here we were beside ourselves, upset with what we were witnessing, and it seemed like the whole focus was put on the pipeline,
Yeah.
when in fact the issue seemed to be more about the sovereignty,
Yeah.
Canada's lack of sovereignty in that region, and their blatant disregard for their own constitution, their own rules, and the constitution and rules of your people.
Yeah.
So we were concerned that if they would do that to you, then they would do that to us.
Absolutely.
And we couldn't sit aside and allow a genocide to occur and not say something about it. So there was an economic blockade, and that happened here in Mohawk territory, and we told the CN Rail and CP and VIA that there'd be no more trains to pass through our territory, while Canada was invading Wet'suwet'en territory with the RCMP. And the reason why this is important is because all the mainstream media, not one of them reported that
No.
at all. They reported that there was train blockade in solidarity with the Wet'suwet'ens' attempt to stop the pipeline, and that had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, whether there's you guys are allowing a pipeline or not allowing a pipeline or whatever, that's not really our business. But the fact that they were committing a heinous crime and an international crime, and it was unclear as to who made that decision, whether that was the judge, is Judge Church criminal, is the RCMP police commissioner for British Columbia the criminal, was that authorized or ordered by the Minister of Justice, was it ordered by Justin Trudeau? It was unclear, but there needs to be some investigation, because someone needs to be held responsible for committing these acts of terrorism and these crimes against humanity within your territory. And so we didn't want any more trains to pass through our lands as an economic block, as a punishment for what they were doing to you. And that was never ever ran on the news. They interviewed many of us, and CBC, CTV, Global, and that those words were iterated over and over as to why that was happening, what was going on, and it never was presented. What was presented was that it was a protest in solidarity with the Wet'suwet'en, and there was no protest. There was an economic block. And it was in response to their crime against humanity, against your people, and that was never talked about. And that's been bothering me for 7 months.
Yeah.
And it wasn't made clear. And so we're still in that today, because when Mark Miller, the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, came here to Tyendinaga to discuss polishing the covenant chain. That's our treaty with the Crown, and to talk about what was the train issue. We articulated that very clearly.
Yeah.
And they immediately organized to have some talks and meetings with your people, And they seek to create some sort of MOU, yet they didn't bring the Governor General, who was a representative of the Crown. So there's like this sort of like attempt to circumvent the Constitution, their Constitution, in that they have to have a purchase or a treaty agreement of land surrender from the Indigenous people to the Crown, who's the head of state of Canada, even to this day, before they can legally occupy or to take claim dominion. So they tried to do an MOU, and I don't know the details of the MOU. I didn't read it all, but it seems to me that was clear that the Minister of Indian Affairs, Mark Miller, he realized or knew that what they had done was wrong. But that was never talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. This is our first little live feed, and us on some pretty intense stuff. Yeah. Oh, you want to sip your coffee?
Yeah,
Have a little coffee break for a second. So a little plug, shameless plug. It's Churro Coffee, coffee company. Churro
delicious.
Coffee. And they're one of our sponsors, and they're pretty awesome. The coffee's very good. We'll run a commercial at the end of the segment, and you'll be able to. You actually can order Churro Coffee online, so hopefully you can do that. So one of the things that we had to do was there were a number of individuals charged with mischief and right about I might have been one of them. So we've been doing some fundraising to raise money to pay for legal fees and stuff. And one of the ways that we're doing that is we've been selling T-shirts. So if you don't mind, you're wearing this beautiful sweater. I had no idea you were going to wear that today.
Actually, because Laksamasu is using the exact same for fundraising for the village.
So we're selling these T-shirts, and you'll be able to look this up at the end of the segment. We'll post the web address, the link, and we'll have these T-shirts for sale. If you want to acquire one of these shirts, please buy one there. Proceeds from the sale of these T-shirts will go towards raising funds for legal fees for those individuals who are still in the courts regarding what happened in February here at the train tracks in Tyendinaga. I think there's 28 individuals that are still facing charges, and there's a variety of charges. The number one is mischief over 5,000, which can be to a maximum of 10 years in prison. So it's a significant charge. People think mischief, it's just mischief, but 10 years is not mischief, or not just insignificant. I mean, and although I don't think that's what's going to happen, I'm doubtful that they'll seek to put anyone in prison for a kind of time like that. And then there's a few other charges related to breach of court injunction, a judge's order, and there's another funny one regarding being inside the CN work line or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but there's a number of people who got similar charges, and so we're still raising money, and it's a costly endeavor to fight that stuff.
Yeah. Is there an email address that people can just e-transfer to?
There is. I off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is. So we'll have that posted as well. So if people want to make an e-transfer to help with the legal fund, they can do that, and we'll make that available. And the website to be able to buy a T-shirt or a sweater. I think there's T-shirts and sweaters, and I actually think there's patches to put on a coat or something like that. Those are pretty cool. So. Yeah. That's what we're doing. That'd be good. So let's call it a day. This was an awesome little thing, and it's brand new. And for those of you who are in the audience, would you please give us feedback? We need to know how's the sound, how's the lighting, are we talked too long, all that sort of stuff, because it'll help to make us improve and do better. And we just want to get the real news to real people. You have a good one.
You are listening to Real People's Radio, Real People's Media Live.